Jonathan and Sally from the World Church team, and we got on the line Andy Worthington from Open Doors. Andy, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi. Well, it's so good to be with you at St Paul's, and I just want to say a massive thank you to you as a church for your ongoing prayer and support for the persecuted church. And yeah, I'm head of church relations at Open Doors, so my role is to go around churches here in the UK and Ireland, telling them about what's going on with our persecuted brothers and sisters around the world. And it's a huge privilege to be a part of this amazing ministry. Before that, I was a church leader myself for 10 years. And before that, I was involved in the motor industry. So that was a very, yeah. So I live in the Midlands, and I have three children, 3 girls, and my wife Michelle.
Our chief support through for Open Doors is aimed at Syria, and wondering if you could tell us a few details about the work in Syria and a few maybe statistics and so on.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. So in Syria is number 12, by the way, on the World Watch List. The World Watch List is something we produce which goes through the top 50 countries in the world where it's most dangerous to live as a follower of Jesus. And Syria is number 12 on that list. Syria has about 677,000 Christians and about 3.6% of a population of almost 19 million people. The number of Christians in the country has decreased in the past decade, as many have fled due to conflict and persecution. And it's nearly 10 years since the war in Syria began. And the impact on the church has been devastating. Lives have been lost. Homes have been destroyed, families displaced, and many have fled the country. Before the war, there were about 1.8 million Christians in the country, and today only an estimated 677,000 remain. So that's only about 1/3 of the church before the war are still there. And a lot of those that are there are internally displaced. So the church is really struggling in Syria, and that's why we really need to stand with them and support them.
Now, we know about refugees coming from Syria, and obviously there's some stories about crossings and all of that that's on the news, and it's all pretty difficult stuff. But presumably it's difficult for people still living in Syria as well. And what we find is the best way to express this is to actually give an example of an individual and what they've been through. 10 years of conflict is a long time to still still be in Syria and to see 2/3 of the church disappear. Do you have any examples that sort of bring this home to people, just what life is like?
Yeah, so fighting between Kurdish forces and the Syrian government has broken out again near to several Christian communities in Qamishli, northeast Syria. And the constant stop-start of the conflict is causing a lot of uncertainty and disruption. And the Syrian church has called on the worldwide Christian family to pray for peace. Now, I'd love to just show you a really short video clip of the church, basically one of our partners on the ground who were there just watching, seeing what was going on. And it just gives you an idea of what it's like with being so close to sort of war going on around you. And it just helps you understand a little bit of that. So let me just play that clip for you.
Sisters and brothers, I'm from Qamishli, northeast Syria. Fighting broke out last night. It's close to the neighborhood where Christians live. We haven't slept since yesterday, and many of families, Christian families, displaced to another areas. Please pray for us for the fighting to stop and for the protection of the church.
Were you able to hear that? Sorry.
Spot on. Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Yes.
I'm intrigued how that recording got to you. Was that difficult? Was it a challenging thing for someone to arrange?
So it's one of our partners on the ground who was there and filmed it with his camera and then sent it to us online, just to give us an idea of what it's like. I don't know if you could hear the explosions and shooting stuff going on in the background, but just gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going on. But also, Open Doors contacted a local partner in the city, Pastor George Mushi, and he says there were fatalities on both sides. Guns were firing all night with short periods of stopping occasionally. Now it was more calm than last night, but the fighting has still not stopped. A few church members live near the location where they were fighting everyone. Everyone is fine, but they are in real danger from random shooting. I asked my church members to stay at home and not leave for any reason. They are now in their houses and praying for peace. And he said, please pray for us that God will intervene and calm the situation down. So yeah, it'd be good to remember them in prayer.
Indeed. Oh, it's very hard for us to imagine.
Do you have many people on the ground there?
Yeah, we do actually. I mean, there's another lady who we had. I don't know whether you've been reading our different mailings from we've been doing a mission, basically, or a campaign for hope. It's called Hope for the Middle East for a few years now, and we mentioned a lady called Gina, and I'll show you a picture of her. This is Gina, and she was Gina's husband was taken from her. He was kidnapped in 2013, and in May of 2013. And she's a young mother from Aleppo. She's featured a few times actually in our Middle East campaign. And Gina would love to see her husband again. She suffers from brain atrophy at the moment and is unable to work. And she's asked if the church can pray for her so that she will be able to see her husband, and he'll be released, and also ask for healing for her as well.
Of course we'll pray, yes. Now, you've got centres of hope, haven't you, in Syria?
Yeah, so here at Open Doors, we work through partners in Syria to strengthen the church through Bible distribution, discipleship and leadership training, trauma counselling, relief aid and rehabilitation programmes for internally displaced Christians. And much of this happens through Centres of Hope. And we recently heard from a Centre of Hope in Latika, a coastal city in the west of Syria that has just reopened with new and improved facilities. This Centre of Hope is a school for children. Since lockdown, they've been asked to add 3 new classes to the programme. And the children love going there and they love learning, because many of them have obviously, for obvious reasons, haven't been able to learn for so long. And Fadia Luca is a teacher in the centre. And she says, I see a big change in their educational level. When they first came, they didn't know any English or know how to multiply numbers. And now everyone can multiply numbers off by heart. Fadia has said she's seen a change in the children's hearts as well as their minds. In the beginning, when someone gave the wrong answer to a question, the class would make fun of them. But after lessons on love, they started apologizing to each other instead of having a fight. With activities about love, forgiveness, and being thankful, she said, we aim to plant seeds of goodness in the hearts of the next generation. The new classes are for children aged 6 to 9, and they've proved extremely popular with local parents. So popular, in fact, that the centre has reached maximum capacity and could be safely, should be safely taught. And so registration was open to anybody in Latika, regardless of faith background. And the Centres of Hope want to show Jesus' love to the community, and they don't attach any conditions to entry, but they do want to make sure that they show Jesus as the real source of hope.
That's a brilliant thing about the Christian faith, is that we've always been an inclusive group of people. which is one of the great things, but the lesson that Jesus taught us, isn't it? To love your enemy, love everyone. Brilliant. You've given us a lot of prayer. We had a section here asking for prayer points, Andy, but you've given us a load already. I mean, do you just want us to take the ones you've given us, or
Yeah, I could give you a few more sort of overview sort of points to pray for, if that would be helpful.
Good. Yeah.
So one of the things that we would love you to pray for is that Syrian Christians will be able to return to their homes and communities and livelihoods. That's what they've asked us to pray for, one of the things. Also, they've asked if we'll pray for those who are being persecuted believers, so those believers from a Muslim background in Syria, because they continue to face all kinds of verbal, social, psychological, and even physical persecution due to their faith. Finally, love you to pray for Syrians' health and welfare. So the war has left countless families internally displaced. It's hygiene in internally displaced people camps is poor, and people are forced to live very close to each other, leading to increased risk of being infected with COVID-19. So they've asked if we'd particularly pray for health and welfare.
Indeed, we will. Yes.
Yeah. I think that we all think of lockdown and coronavirus and the impact on our lives. It's we forget just how easy we have it over here. It's very easy to. For me, I found that the world has shrunk. I feel my world shrunk in the pandemic, and you think more about yourself and your environment, your local environment, and less about the greater world where the needs are way more greater. And then they got COVID on top. Yeah, so that's why we've got to keep these things alive in people's hearts. Thank you.
Bless you and all that work with you for all you're doing. It's just incredible. Just out of our field of, we just can't imagine it.
Yeah.
What everybody's going
well,
through.
The only way you can really imagine it completely is to be there. But again, that's where COVID has sort of stopped us being able to travel. So if we wanted to go and see what it's like, we can't. So it's really tough.
That's one thing that Brother Andrew, who started Open Doors 65 years ago, he said that our prayers can go where we can't.
Yeah.
And so praying is so important, and it makes a huge difference. And when we meet them, that's the first thing they say to us: please, will you pray for us? So thank you.
Yeah, I like that. We had one last question about ideas for what people could do to help. And this is, sorry, Sally, this is your question, isn't it?
It's okay. I've lost the track somewhere about, yes. Other than praying, yes. Is there anything that you can suggest that we need to help?
We know about refugee support. Is that important from Open Doors' perspective? Opening your houses up to refugees?
Here in this country, you mean? Yeah, definitely. It's a great thing to do, and it's something that Jesus encouraged us, didn't he, to I guess we were encouraged, weren't we, to sell all we have and give to the poor, but also that sense of being welcoming, being generous, being hospitable is something that we are encouraged to do, and to look after the widow and the orphan. And I think that includes the refugees as well.
Brilliant. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy.